My mother sold me for $25,000 cash on the table. No hesitation, like I was some bill she was finally paying off. And if that sentence already made your chest tighten, good, sit with it for a second. Because I'm going to ask you something. I still ask myself when I can't sleep at night. If the person who brought you into this world puts a price tag on you, what does that make you? A daughter or property? And does that make them a mother or a broker? I was 18 when it happened, legally grown sure, but not really. You know what I mean? Still soft in the way kids are soft when they've never had one safe adult in their life for longer than a weekend. Still apologizing for taking up oxygen in a house that's not even that big to begin with. I grew up in this yellow house in Georgia. And when I say yellow, I don't mean cute, happy sunflowers. I mean peeling paint, sagging porch, one busted gutter, hanging down like a broken arm. It smelled like old oil and cigarettes inside, like fried bologna, and anger, and the floor creaked in certain spots because we'd had water damage a few times. But of course nobody was paying for a real repair, just throw a towel down and pray that kind of house. Most days I just tried not to make noise, keep my head down, wash dishes, stay useful, which if you've ever lived with someone cruel, you know. That's survival 101 move. Quiet. Don't talk back. Don't look too comfortable, don't laugh. Don't eat too much in front of them, because any of that can turn into, what are you smiling at? Or look at you eating again. You think food is free. And next thing you know, you're crying in the bathroom, trying not to get caught crying, yeah. That happened. My mother, Loretta, had this voice like a whip. You could hear it from 2 rooms away, and she kept bills on the coffee table like trophies, like proof the world was doing her wrong, not the other way around. She'd wave a pink notice at me and go, "Another late fee." Then she'd look me up and down like I was personally charging her interest, and you just standing there eating us out of house and home. And when I tell you that hits different, when you're a big girl, it hits different, because weight is real obvious currency. In a poor house, people weaponize it fast. No man will ever want you. No job will ever put you where customers can see you. She said that to me like she was telling me the weather. I used to just stare at my hands in the sink and scrub plates like if I just got them clean enough, I wouldn't hear the words. But you always hear the words. Only person who ever talked to me like I was something worth loving was my grandma, and she was gone by then. So really it was just memory talking to me. At that point, I'd hear her in my head. "Baby girl, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, real slow like a blessing." And I would hold on to that sentence like it was the last rail on a bridge, but memory can't stand in the doorway and protect you. When someone's yelling, memory can't pull you into a hug and say, "I got you." Memory can't call the light company. It's not the same. And after she passed, the house just got colder, not in temperature, in spirit, like kindness moved out with her. So the night everything changed, I'm standing at the sink, scrubbing off dried eggs from a plate that's already chipped water up to my wrists, and I hear a knock at the front door. Not a neighborly knock, not that soft. Tap, tap, tap people do when they don't want to be rude. This was firm, confident. Like whoever was on that porch already decided what was about to happen. My shoulders locked up, because unexpected visitors in our world never means flowers. You know what I mean? It means a problem. I hear the door open. I hear her voice flip like a switch. That's how fast she could do it. I'm talking 0 to Sunday. Church lady. Sweet. "Oh, of course, come in. Please sit down. We can work something out." And I'm thinking, wait, who are you? Because that's not how she talks to anybody for free. I wipe my hands, move quiet down the hallway, and I peek around the corner into the living room. And that's when I see him for the first time. A man in a wheelchair sitting in our living room like that made sense, like he belonged in a place where the couch still had burn marks from when my uncle fell asleep with a cigarette. And I don't mean a cheap hospital wheelchair either. I mean something you only see in commercials or rich people's movies. Sleek lines, polished metal, custom fit, gliding like it's not even touching the ground. He had on this clean button-down shirt and dark slacks, expensive shoes. Everything about him said money, but his face didn't match that, because he didn't have that look. Men get around poor people that bored, superior look. He looked, I don't know how to explain it. He looked gentle, and that scared me more than anything, because when you're not used to being treated kindly, kindness feels like a setup. He introduced himself as Louis Kane, and even the way he said his name was soft, like he was trying not to take up too much room, which was wild, because he was obviously the most powerful person in the house in that moment. My mother was acting like she was hosting a tea party, which if you knew her would have made you laugh out loud. She was doing that fake little polite laugh like she's never cussed somebody out in a grocery store parking lot, and I'm standing there half hidden behind the wall, and I'm hearing words I don't fully understand yet. Terms, arrangements, protection, paperwork, numbers, and then I hear my own name and my stomach dropped so fast, I swear I could hear it. Let me pause right here because people always ask me, did you know what was happening in that moment? Like, did you get it right away? And I want to be honest, yes and no. Part of me knew something was about to happen to me, not with me to me, and part of me was like, no, she wouldn't even her, she wouldn't, right? If it were you, if it was your mother on that couch, would you have believed she could do that? Or would you have told yourself, I'm overreacting, it's fine. Be honest with yourself. He left after about an hour, and I stayed hidden that whole time like a rabbit listening to low voices, trying to catch phrases, trying to read the air. And then I watched my mother do something that made everything click. She sat down at the coffee table, dumped a stack of cash out of her purse, and started counting. And I'm not talking $20. I'm not talking somebody paid back gas money. I'm talking she's licking her thumb and peeling off bills in a rhythm, click, 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 like a cashier. She smiled. She smiled like Christmas morning smile, like she just got a blessing from God himself. And I realized exactly what had happened. She sold me. $25,000. That was my price. Say it out loud with me so it stops sounding like a movie and starts sounding like real life. Because it was real life, my mother sold me for $25,000 to a man in a wheelchair. And before anybody gets slick in the comments, well, technically, that's not legal. Technically, that's guardianship transfer. Save that because legal or not, intention matters. And the intention was not love. The intention was debt relief. I barely slept that night. I lay there in my little room staring at the water stains on the ceiling, listening to her out there humming like she just won the lottery. And every time a car went by, I thought, this is it. This is when they come get me. I felt like a dog waiting to be picked up from a backyard. And I prayed, not for escape. I knew escape wasn't happening. I prayed for strength. God, just make me strong enough not to break in front of her. That was it. That was the prayer. Morning comes, my door swings open. No knock, because she never knocked. Get up, pack, Chul, she said, like this was some sleepover I should be grateful for. And try to look decent for once, don't embarrass me. And that was it. That was the goodbye. No hug. No, I'm sorry. No, this is for your own good. Nothing. Black car outside, driver in a pressed uniform like some movie butler, door opened for me like I'm important, which honestly just made me more nervous. And then we drove and drove and drove past the part of town. I knew past the part of town I wasn't supposed to go past, even that until the houses got bigger and farther apart. Then trees, long stretches of quiet road, lined with these big old oaks that arched over like a tunnel. And my stomach was doing flips because when you're a girl and you get driven out to a place you can't walk back from, your brain goes to dark places. I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking about missing posters and drainage ditches. Then we turned this corner and I saw where he lived. It wasn't a house, it was an estate, warm stone and huge windows, and ivy sliding up the walls like something out of some magazine rich people leave on their coffee tables. There were actual gardens, like real manicured gardens with trellises and walking paths. And it was quiet, quiet, in a way that wasn't dead. More like held breath, like grief. You ever walk into a funeral home before the first people arrive, that hush, that's what it felt like. I got out clutching my little duffel bag, which by the way wasn't even full, that's how little I owned. And I remember thinking, there are bedrooms for plants in this place bigger than my whole room back home. Luis was waiting for me inside in this study, with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the gardens. Light everywhere, books lining the walls and paintings. So many paintings, not hotel art, real art. Some finished, some half done, some just sketches on canvas. And he looked at me like he had rehearsed this moment and didn't want to mess it up, like, "Hi, Tiana." Real, gentle, real, respectful. I hope the ride wasn't too long. And I'm standing there shaking and saying, "No, sir." And he goes, "Please call me Luis." And I couldn't, not yet. I was raised on yes, sir, no, ma'am. And survival manners I didn't know what to do with gentle. Then he did something I still replay in my head when I'm trying to understand his heart. He laid it out plain, like I was a human, which, believe it or not, was new to me, he said. I could help around the house if I wanted light chores, dusting, vacuuming, helping in the kitchen, some gardening. If I was comfortable with it, he said. There was a separate wing, east side of the house, where I'd have my own room, and my own bathroom, and privacy. He said the words, "your own bathroom." Like that alone might give me peace, and honestly, it kinda did. And then he said this, he said, "You're safe here." He said it like a promise, like he was swearing it in front of God later that night. I found a little handwritten note by my bed, tucked right where I'd see it. It said, "You are safe here, Luis," in neat, careful handwriting, like he wanted no confusion. Ask yourself something, because I ask people this all the time. When's the first time in your life you felt safe, like really safe, like you could fall asleep without bracing? And whose voice made you feel that way? I want you to actually answer that in the comments, because you'll learn a lot about yourself from that answer. Dinner that first night is burned in my brain forever, not because of the food, though I won't lie, that steak melted like butter, but because of what happened at the table, big formal dining room seats for 20 chandeliers, crystal glasses, all that drama. Rich people love. And it's just me and him sitting at one end. The staff served and left us alone, which I appreciated. I didn't need witnesses to how awkward I felt. And I watched him try to cut his food, and his hands were shaking. Not like he's weak, like he's mad at his own body for not doing what it used to do. And something in me just moved before I even knew I had made a choice. I got up, walked around to his side, and I said, in this little quiet voice, "May I help?" And I swear you could feel the air change. His shoulders dropped half an inch, his jaw unclenched. He looked at me like I had just done something sacred, and I just adjusted his water, angled his plate, tucked his napkin where it wouldn't slide, small stuff, respectful stuff, and he whispered, "Thank you." And it wasn't that polite rich person, "thank you." It was real, it was like relief wrapped in gratitude. And then he said something that still gets me a little choked up. He said, "Most people either pretend not to see me struggle or they try to take over and do everything for me. You found the middle ground." Middle ground, that phrase sat on my tongue like honey. Middle ground means I'm not helpless, and you're not invisible. Middle ground means we meet as equals. And that night, a storm rolled in, Georgia, summer, thunder, hard rain slapping the windows, little flashes lighting up the room, and for the first time I don't even know how long, I cried into a pillow that didn't smell like smoke. Not those quiet tears where you're biting your own hand so nobody hears you. I really cried full body, shaking, ugly, but quiet, because I still had that reflex. But it came out of me, and I wasn't crying because I was scared of him. I was crying because I didn't know what this was. I didn't know if this was safety or a different kind of cage. I didn't know if I had been rescued or purchased. And that uncertainty sat on my chest like a cinder block. The days after we fell into this rhythm that felt so soft. I don't have a better word for it, and I hadn't had soft in a long time. Mornings in the garden or greenhouse with him. That greenhouse was like something out of a dream. Glass, walls, sunlight, humidity that fogged the panes, flowers everywhere, orchids, roses climbing up, little trellises, herbs, things hanging from copper hooks, all of it alive, all of it tended. You could smell the green in the air, and he showed me rows of canvases along the back wall, his paintings, and he got shy. I'm not making that up. This man who clearly had more money than anyone I'd ever met got shy in front of me. Some people call it a hobby, he said. Some people call it an obsession. And he laughed a little, and the laugh had dust on it, like he hadn't used it in a while. And in that moment I saw him different, not as the man in the wheelchair who bought me out of that house, but as someone lonely, someone grieving, someone who needed me there almost as much as I needed somewhere to be. Then he did the thing that actually changed the course of my life. And I'm not exaggerating for story value here. He rolled over to a storage cabinet, pulled out a fresh blank canvas, brand new brushes, paints, and set up a second easel right next to his. He looked at me and went, "Come paint with me." Like it was the most normal sentence in the world. And I panicked, full panic, hands up like I'm under arrest. "Oh no, I can't. I'm not good." And right then, without even thinking about it, I repeated my mother's voice because that's what I'd been taught. "I'm not good. It's a waste. I just doodle. It's nothing." And he shook his head, real calm. "Art isn't about being good." He told me, "It's about getting what's in here." He tapped his chest out where you can see it. Sometimes we just need permission to try. Permission. He said that word, and my throat got tight. You ever realize nobody in your life has ever given you permission to be more than useful, more than quiet, more than the big girl who helps around the house? That realization hits like a punch. So we painted, and I was terrible. Don't get me wrong, I squeezed a tube of paint too hard, and blue splattered across my shirt, my hands even on his sleeve, and I froze like I'd just scratched a brand new car, and he laughed, like from the belly, like he hadn't laughed in months. "Perfect," he said, grinning. "Now you're officially an artist. First rule is you always end up wearing some of it." And I started laughing too, couldn't help it. Tension just cracked and fell off me in pieces right there between the orchids and the lemon tree. And that was the first moment I felt something like joy in that house. Afternoons we'd sit in his library. I'd curl up in this huge leather chair and read aloud to him because he said sometimes his eyes got tired when he painted too long. Poetry, scripture, little kindnesses in word form. And we started actually talking, not surface talk, soul talk. I'd tell him about being made fun of in school, how boys would moo at me when I walked by like I was livestock. How my mother said that was just the world telling me the truth. And I'd try to say it like a joke, like, "Kids are mean, right?" And he would not let me laugh it off. He'd look at me so serious and say, "That was cruelty, not honesty, and you did not deserve it." And it messed me up a little because nobody had ever corrected the lie out loud for me before. He told me about the accident, the one that put him in the chair, told me how his fiancée, Marie, died that night. Told me how people said, "At least you survived." Like that was comfort, when his whole world had just been ripped out of the passenger seat. And I heard something in his voice I recognized, that hollow ringing grief sound, and I thought, oh, we're both broken just in different places. So yeah, it started to feel almost like home. I won't lie. I started to breathe easier. I slept through the night. I smiled without catching myself. I found myself humming while I cleaned the greenhouse like my grandma used to hum, Amazing Grace on the porch swing. And that's why what happened next shattered me so hard. Because here's the twist, and I want you to stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind, and it changes everything. You thought you understood about me, about him, about money, about love. I was in the library one afternoon dusting shelves and putting books back, because yes, I still felt like I had to earn my keep. Every second I was there, trauma will do that to you. I heard his voice from down the hall in his office, and something in his tone made me pause. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't. But you know how when somebody you care about sounds stressed, and you automatically tune in, it was like that. His office door was cracked, and I could hear every word. "Yes, Mr. Holden," he was saying, all business now, no softness, a voice I'd never heard from him before. "The transfer went through as planned, $25,000 as agreed." And the second I heard that number, my whole body went cold, like my blood just stopped, and I kept listening, because I couldn't not. And he said, "You saw how that woman treated her. What choice did I have? I had to get her out of there. The legal paperwork ensures she can't come near Tiana. I bought her freedom." I dropped the book that was in my hand. Just dropped it. It hit the carpet and I didn't even hear it because in my head it was just echoing, "I bought her freedom." And then like a final slap, he said, "When you have billions, what better use for it than saving someone who needs help?" Billions. That's how I found out. Not just that he was rich, but billionaire rich, and that he had in his mind bought my freedom. You ever feel your entire reality tilt, like somebody grabbed the floor and flipped it 30 degrees under you? That's what it felt like. And in 1 second, all the softness, all the laughter in the greenhouse, all the quiet dinners, all the "you're safe here," it all twisted into something ugly in my head. Charity Pity Rescue Pet Project. And at the center of it, me, the poor fat girl he saved, his project, his good deed. My mother's voice rushed back into my skull like a flood. "Make yourself useful for once. Nobody's gonna want you." And I felt humiliated, furious, stupid, used. I ran upstairs, heart pounding in my throat. Grabbed that sad duffel from under the bed. Started throwing clothes in it, like my life was on fire. Hands shaking so bad, I couldn't even zip it at first. And I headed for the door. And that's when he found me right there in the doorway of the room. He gave me bag on my shoulder, like I was a thief. "Tiana," he said. And his face looked scared. Actually scared. "What are you doing?" And I turned on him with all that pain and said the first thing that jumped out of my mouth. "How much?" My voice sounded strange, like it had gravel in it. "How much did you pay for me?" His face drained, like all the color just slid right off. "You heard," he whispered, and I laughed, but it was that ugly laugh that sounds more like choking. "Yeah, I heard. I heard $25,000. I heard legal paperwork. I heard I bought her freedom. Tell me something, Luis. That's what I'm worth to you, right? 25 grand and a signature. That's what I cost. Did you feel good after? Did you feel like a hero?" And you could see in his face that every word I said was cutting him. But I wasn't going to stop. I couldn't stop. The anger was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. "My mother sold me like furniture, and you bought me like furniture, and now I'm supposed to. What, be grateful, clean your house, smile, and sit pretty in your big, lonely mansion so you can feel like a savior. Is that the arrangement? Because if that's the arrangement, just say it, don't dress it up like safety." He shook his head, rolled closer a couple inches slow, like he was careful not to spook me, and said, "That's not what this is." And I shot back, "Then what is it?" And outside, I swear to you, thunder cracked like God himself was like, "Yeah, this is a moment." He said, "I used my money to get you out of a situation that was killing you. I would have called the police, Tiana. But you and I both know how that would have gone. No proof, no bruises, just a difficult teenage girl and a mother saying she's doing her best in hard times. It would have gone nowhere. I did the only thing I could think of to make sure she couldn't hurt you again." I had papers drawn, so she legally cannot come near you, yes. I paid her, not because I think you're property, but because that monster only understands money. I didn't tell you right away, because I needed you to feel safe first. I needed you to see me as a person, not a bank account. And I heard him, I did, but I couldn't hear him. You know what I mean. It was too late. Humiliation is loud, louder than logic, louder than intention. All I could hear was bought, and I looked him dead in the eye and said, I don't want your money, I don't want your pity, I don't want to be your charity project. And I ran. Out the room, down the stairs, past those perfect paintings, and that perfect chandelier, out the front door, into the rain, same rain as the night I got there. Like the sky remembered, and he followed me to the porch. I heard the wheels of his chair on the wood, heard his voice cracking for the first time. Tiana, please, please, don't go, please. And I didn't look back. I just ran because fight is loud, but flight is louder, and I was drowning in both. Be honest with me, if it were you, what would you have done? You find out the only safe person in your life secretly paid for you and kept that from you. Do you stay and listen, or do you run and protect whatever pride you have left? And do you think that's fair? Say it in the comments, I really want to know. I walked in the rain till the sun came up. Soaked through, shaking feet. Blistered head pounding from crying. Scared that any car that slowed down was him sending someone after me. Even though now I know he'd never do that. But trauma doesn't ask for proof, trauma just makes up stories and dares you to argue. I walked until I saw a sign for a town called Gibson Falls, population 2,000 something. Tiny, quiet, like a postcard, where nothing bad ever happens, lies. Bad things happen everywhere. You just don't always see them. I stumbled into town at sunrise, looking like I crawled out of a ditch, and I saw this little white church with warm yellow light in the windows, like safety lived in there. And I was so tired I didn't even care if someone yelled at me. I just needed to be somewhere indoors. I didn't even make it all the way up the steps. Before the door opened, and this older black woman with silver hair and a bun leaned out and said, Child, what in heaven's name are you doing out here in this state? And that was Pastor Miriam. Now listen to me, because I'm about to talk about God for a sec, but not in the way that makes people change the channel. Miriam wasn't church lady. Miriam was battlefield medic. She didn't ask me 12 questions to make sure I was worthy. She didn't shame me for looking like a drowned raccoon on her porch. She just said, get inside before you catch your death. And she meant it. She marched me to a little shower in the fellowship hall, gave me clean thrift store clothes and a towel that actually smelled like detergent, not mildew. Then sat me down at this folding table in the kitchen and put scrambled eggs, toast, and hot chocolate with mini marshmallows in front of me like I was her granddaughter. And she said, eat baby food fixes more emergencies than people admit. Then she just sat there working a crossword, like this was normal, like girls half frozen and shaking show up at her door every morning. After I had food in me and my hands stopped trembling so bad, she put her pen down and said one sentence that cracked me open in a way I didn't even know I could break anymore. She said, pain makes saints or ghosts. You choose which one you're gonna be. I stayed. At first it was just, rest here a couple nights, then figure it out. To be clear, I had nowhere to figure it out to, but when you've lived in survival mode, you lie to yourself just enough to get to the next sunrise. You know what I mean? Next thing I know, I'm helping clean pews in the mornings, wiping down hymnals, setting out donated canned goods for the food pantry, like I've been doing it forever, and the afternoons. Oh my God, the afternoons saved me. They ran this little after-school program out of the church basement. Couple folding tables, old carpet, donated markers in a plastic bin, kids everywhere talking loud, laughing, running in circles. Nobody telling them, stop existing. And one day, this little boy, Marcus, missing his front teeth, comes up to me and goes, Miss Tiana, Can you draw me a T-Rex, but make him nice, like he's smiling and he doesn't eat anybody? And I was like, I can try. And suddenly I had 6 kids around me watching, like I was doing magic. And then this girl, Sophie, serious little face hair in 2 puffs, goes, "Can you show me how to paint flowers like that?" Pointing at my sketchbook. And that's how Miss Tiana's art hour was born. I didn't plan it, it just happened. Let me explain something that people who grew up loved might not understand. Being needed in a way that's not painful is addictive. These kids weren't using me. They weren't taking. They were trusting me. They were letting me guide their hands. Loosen your wrist, baby, don't choke the brush, let the line flow. They'd try it and then go, did it. And I'd clap like they just won an award. Because to me they did. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't too much. I wasn't in the way. I wasn't the problem. I was Miss Tiana, the lady who brings the good markers and knows how to make purple without buying purple, and you cannot tell me that wasn't holy. Weeks turned into months like that, and I started changing in ways I didn't even notice until other people pointed it out. My face softened, the constant tight worry in my jaw let go. I had color in my cheeks. My shoulders weren't up by my ears anymore. I walked different, not hunched, not apologizing. And my body started healing itself just from regular meals, sleep, sunlight, walking, laughing. I caught myself in the mirror one day in the church bathroom, and I didn't recognize the girl looking back. I looked alive, and if you're thinking, oh, so she got skinny and then life got better, absolutely not. Don't do that. What changed was not size, what changed was kindness, rest, and purpose. Meanwhile, and I didn't know this at the time, Luis never stopped thinking about me, never stopped caring, never stopped showing up for me even from a distance. And you can call that creepy if you want. But let me tell you what it actually looked like. It looked like envelopes with no return address showing up at the church office with checks big enough to fix the leaking roof fund. The senior meal deliveries restocked the pantry. It looked like a 5-figure donation labeled Children's Art Program for supplies, dreams, and second chances. No signature, no donated by, nothing, just quiet help. And yeah, later I found out it was his handwriting. And yeah, I cried when I realized, because he didn't send a press release. He didn't slap his name on a banner. He didn't roll up to the church with cameras like, "Look at me saving the poor." He just took care of us from far away, and in his house alone he was working himself sick in physical therapy so he could learn to stand again, pushing past what his doctors recommended, gripping those bars with sweat dripping down his forehead, saying one more time, and writing me letters. He never sent pages and pages in this little wooden box. Today I stood for 30 seconds. Today I heard you laugh in my head, and it made me believe I could try again. Today I donated in your name, I hope it helps. He didn't know if he'd ever get to tell me, he just needed me to know somehow, even if that somehow never came. This is the part where most stories would say, and then we found each other again, and everything was perfect. The end roll credits, but life isn't a Hallmark movie. Life is messier than that, because right when I was starting to feel steady enough to maybe call him steady enough to maybe say, "I'm sorry I ran." Guess who walked back into my life loud, crying, arms open like a performance in the middle of church service, so everybody could see that's right. Loretta. Picture this, we're in worship, hands up, voices humming that warm safety bubble. You get sometimes in a room like that, and the doors swing open like it's a courtroom reveal. And my mother comes down the aisle in a floral dress, like she's a deacon's wife. Tears already rolling, voice already raised. My baby, I finally found you." And before I can even move, she's got her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. I've changed. I swear to God I've changed. Can you forgive me? Lord knows I was wrong. Doing it loud enough for people in the back pews to hear, and folks in the congregation are moved because church folks love a redemption story. The prodigal mother returns. Hallelujah. Pastor Miriam steps forward like, Mrs. Coleman, let's maybe talk in my office. And my mother, without missing a beat, goes, No, Pastor. I want my church family to witness my repentance. Like she's on stage doing a testimony and the room is eating it up and I'm standing there shaking, wanting so bad to believe her because listen, no matter how bad it gets, part of you always still wants your mother. That's just the truth. Luis was there that day too, sitting near the back, quiet. And he told me later that he knew right then it was trouble, he said. Her mouth was saying, forgive me, but her eyes were scanning the room for opportunity. And if you've ever dealt with a manipulator, you know exactly what that means. We let her stay because, of course we did, because forgiveness is in the Bible, and because I wanted it to be real so bad it hurt. We set her up in one of the little guest rooms the church uses when somebody needs emergency housing. We fed her, we prayed with her, we gave her clothes, and for a tiny minute, I thought maybe this is it. Maybe God really did flip her heart. Maybe we get to be mother and daughter for the first time without pain. I let myself dream that. And that was almost worse than anything that came next. Because little by little, she started in on me, not loud, not obvious. She did it the way poison works, one drop at a time in the dark breakfast table talk like, Isn't it funny how Mr. Kane's name shows up in the paper now? Reclusive billionaire gives to small church. That's a good look for him, makes him seem human, real smart PR. Or baby, open your eyes. Do you honestly think a rich man does all this for nothing? Men with that kind of money always have an angle. You're his project. That's all his little charity case. Look at the poor fat girl I rescued. That's how they talk. I'm telling you, that's how they are. And she'd do it with this fake wounded mama voice like she's just trying to protect me from heartbreak. And I hate admitting this. I hate it. But it got in my head because old wounds don't just disappear. They sit under your skin, waiting for somebody to press the bruise, and she pressed it hard. I started pulling away from Luis without even realizing I was doing it. I'd skip our afternoon calls. I'd tell him busy today, sorry. I'd avoid being alone with him because I didn't trust my own feelings anymore. I didn't trust what was real and what was pity. I even wrote him a note, left it in the kids' classroom, knowing he'd find it later. Maybe I need to learn to stand on my own now. And I thought I was being noble. I thought I was doing the mature thing. You know what I mean? Like, let me not be a burden, let me not be his charity anymore. When in reality I was just bleeding out in silence and calling it strength. Then the real hit came. See, while my mother was up there in church crying and talking about redemption and hugging everybody and saying praise God for second chances, she was also sneaking into the office and convincing the treasurer that she was allowed to pick up certain donations for Tiana's program. Because Tiana's so busy with the kids right now. Honey, I'll take it to her. She stole over $15,000 that way, money Luis had anonymously sent for art supplies, snacks, paint, safe rides home. The money that let those kids have something bright in their week, money that kept the lights on. In the after-school program, she siphoned it right into new clothes, a new phone, some little fancy things to make herself look respectable, all while telling me to my face that Luis was using me for attention, while she was just trying to protect me. Pastor Miriam sat me down one afternoon, real calm, hands folded, and said, Baby, I need you to hear something hard. And when she laid it out, I felt something inside me tear. You want to talk about heartbreak? It's not always romance, sometimes. Heartbreak is realizing the person who hurt you, your whole life, is still hurting you. Just with prettier words, sometimes. Heartbreak is realizing you pushed away the one person who wasn't trying to use you because you listened to the one who always has, yeah. That one stings. That night, I went back to my little rented room, sat on the floor, and cried in a way that scared me full body. Shaking hands over my face, silent, screaming. because the guilt felt like it was going to rip me in half. Guilt for walking out on Luis, guilt for letting my mother back in, guilt for letting those kids down, by letting somebody take from them, guilt for believing I was just a project, when I should have known how he looked at me was never pity, and when I finally stopped making noise long enough to hear my own heartbeat, I said out loud to nobody but God, I'm done running. The next morning it was raining again, big storm rolling in like the sky remembered. The first time I left him, thunder low and steady, heavy air, and I told Pastor Miriam, can you please keep an eye on my mother today? I gotta go fix something. I broke, and she just nodded like she'd been waiting for me to say that. Go on, child, she said. Grace is waiting. And I grabbed my sketchbook and bus fare and I left. When I got to his estate, the gate was open, which immediately scared me because Luis is careful, like I said, careful about access, careful about boundaries. The front door was cracked too, rain blowing in across the marble entryway, and my stomach dropped. Luis, I called out, voice already shaking. Luis, are you here? No answer. I followed the light down the hallway to the studio, and the whole world just stopped. He was slumped forward in his wheelchair, head down, paintbrush on the floor. A streak of blue dragged across the hardwood. Like a tear's, his skin was pale. His lips looked dry. His eyes were closed, and for a second I swear I couldn't move because my brain wouldn't let me understand what I was seeing. It was like seeing a statue fallen over. It didn't compute, and then everything hit me at once, and I dropped to my knees in front of him so fast. It hurt. Luis, Luis, please, please wake up, please. Shaking his shoulder with both hands, my voice breaking, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. And I honestly thought in that moment that if he died right there because of stress, I helped cause my heart would stop on that floor next to him. He had a pulse, thank God, weak, but their shallow breathing skin, clammy, classic exhaustion, collapse, the doctor told us later. Extreme physical stress, dehydration, overwork, pushing too hard in therapy, not eating right. And yes, heartbreak. Heartbreak is physical. Don't let anybody tell you different. Heartbreak can put you in a hospital bed. I grabbed his hand, and I did the only thing I knew from when my grandma was sick. I bowed my head, and I prayed. And I am not telling you this for views. I'm telling you what happened in that room, I said. God, I know I have said some reckless things and made some stupid choices and pushed away the one person who tried to love me right. And maybe I'm the last person who should be asking for anything. But please, please don't take him, not like this, not before I get to say I'm sorry. Please let me fix this, please. And tears were falling off my face onto his hand, mixing with paint still on his fingers, and right then his fingers twitched. He blinked, slow, heavy, like waking up from underwater. His eyes opened and he looked at me like I was light, like I was oxygen. And in this little rough whisper he said, "You came back." Just that. And I started crying all over again. Messy snot, hiccups, full panic and relief at the same time. I should never have left, I said. And he lifted his hand, shaking. But he did it. And he touched my face, thumb right at the corner of my eye where the tears were. And he said one more thing. I want you to really hear, because this is the line that fixed something in me. I'd been dragging around, broken since I was old enough to understand shame, he said. You were never bought. You were found. I swear to you, I felt that line like a key turning in a lock. We called the ambulance, they took him in, got fluids in him, watched his heart, made him rest. And when he came home, I stayed not as help, not as charity, not as project. I stayed because I chose him and he chose me, and we both said it out loud this time. No secrets, no pretending. We set up this cozy recovery space in the sunroom. Big windows, plants everywhere, jasmine on the air at night, and sunlight in the morning. I'd help him with his physical therapy, support his waist when he practiced standing between the bars, celebrate 30 seconds upright, like he'd run a marathon, and he'd grin all proud and tired, and I'd be like, "Look at you, Superman." And we'd both laugh, and in the afternoons, I read to him again. Psalms, poetry letters from people the foundation had helped. And in the evenings, we'd sit and talk real quiet about guilt, about what it means to accept help, without feeling weak about what forgiveness actually is, when it's not cheap, about how love can feel like danger, when all you've known is control. He showed me the studio once he was steady enough, and I saw the paintings I hadn't seen before. Walls full of me, not a fake me, not a photoshopped me, me as I am sitting with kids, laughing in sunlight, carrying a stack of art supplies, praying with my eyes closed, and I broke down all over again. Because I've never seen myself through loving eyes before. Do you understand what that does to a person, seeing yourself the way someone who loves you sees you? It rewires something. Then we did something big, bigger than us, bigger than our hurt, bigger than his house. We decided this place wasn't going to be a rich man's lonely mansion anymore. We were going to make it mean something. We were going to make it a refuge for real. The library turned into counseling rooms where women could talk to licensed therapists about abuse without being judged. The kitchen turned into this training space where women who needed a new start could learn to cook professionally and get job placement. The greenhouse became an art therapy studio, not just for kids from the church, but for veterans, for survivors, for anybody who needed a place to put their pain somewhere that wouldn't eat them alive. We called it Grace Found Me because that's what it felt like for both of us, like Grace had chased us down. We had an opening day, a whole event. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt surreal. People from the community, reporters, veterans in pressed jackets with medals, moms with little kids, church folks. And Luis decided he was going to walk down the main staircase, actually walk with a cane, slow, careful, shaking, but standing, and the whole room went silent. You could hear camera shutters and people sucking in air and someone whispering, "Thank you, Jesus," under their breath. And when he got to the bottom, he did a little half smile like, "Yeah, I'm here." And then he talked. Not like a CEO, not like a politician, like a man who has bled and healed. He said, "This is not about money. This is about second chances. This is about what happens when you stop hiding behind pain and start letting people in." And then he did one more thing. He pulled a cover off this huge canvas, and I just about lost my composure in front of everybody. It was a portrait of me, in the greenhouse sunlight pouring through the glass behind me. Colors warm and soft, like morning. I'm holding a paintbrush in one hand, and the other hand is reaching out. Like I'm inviting somebody in, and behind me in the painting, in soft shapes he had worked in this whole story. Broken chains at the bottom, doves rising up, hands clasped instead of fists, hope not. Fake hope, earned hope, and in the corner in little script he'd titled it, "Grace Found Me." People started crying, not a couple sniffles. I'm talking veterans wiping their eyes, church ladies fanning themselves. Pastor Miriam with both hands over her mouth whispering, "Look at God," kids tugging on my dress going, "Miss Tiana, that's you, that's you." And I just stood there with tears streaming down my face like this was the most beautiful, most terrifying moment of my life, because being seen that clearly is both gift and responsibility. You know who else was in that room helping serve peach cobbler and coffee, smiling shy and small, like she was scared to break it? My mother. Yeah, Loretta. She'd been in counseling with Pastor Miriam, working, not performing for months by then. Luis had offered her a small cottage on the property with one condition: full honesty, no more manipulation, real accountability therapy every week, boundaries. And I watched her that night, handing plates to women who looked like old versions of herself, and telling them, "Baby, you ain't trash. I promise you that." And I felt something I didn't think I'd ever feel toward her, not anger, not fear, something like cautious hope. Do I trust her fully? Do I believe people can change if they actually face what they've done, maybe for the first time in my life? Yes, maybe. So here's where I'm going to leave you, but I'm not going to wrap it up in a bow for you, because that's not real. People ask me all the time, so are you and Luis together, like that? Is this a love story? And I tell them yes, but not in the way you're asking. It's love, but it's not some fantasy where all the broken pieces just vanish. It's daily love, it's chosen love, it's love that says, I'll sit with you in your worst, and you sit with me in mine, and we'll build something out of it that helps other people so our pain didn't just sit there and rot. People ask me, did he buy you? And that's the conversation that always blows up in the comments. So let's talk about it plain. He paid my mother to get me out. You heard that right. He used money to move me out of a dangerous situation. Was that right or wrong? Because legally, morally, spiritually, people have opinions. Trust me. I've heard them. Is that saving someone or is that buying someone? And if the system won't step in for girls like me, unless we're already dead or bruised up, is it still dirty if money is the only language abusers respect? I want you to sit with that, really sit with it, and tell me what you think, because I still wrestle with it. Here's how I see it now. And you don't have to agree with me, you can absolutely argue with me in the comments. I welcome that. Here's how I see it. Loretta did not sell me because she loved me, she sold me because I was a bill to her. Luis did not buy me because he wanted to own me, he used the only tool he had fast enough to get me out before I broke, and then he spent every day after that trying to show me I wasn't property. I was a person, not because he wanted credit, but because he actually believed it, and because he needed saving. Two different kind, but same root, both of us were drowning. We just grabbed each other. So now I'm asking you straight up, if it were you, if someone could write a check and pull you out of hell, would you take it? Or would you say no on principle and stay in hell out of pride? Do you think a person like my mother deserves a second chance, or do you think some people cross a line you can't walk back from? Would you forgive, not forget, forgive the person who threw you away if they actually tried to change? Or would you shut that door forever for your own safety? And what about him? Do you think a billionaire can love somebody without it being about power, or is power always there no matter how kind they are? I want to hear you, all of you. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you think I should have run. Tell me if you think I was stupid to go back. Tell me if you think grace is real, or if that's just a word. Church people say to make ugly things sound pretty. And if you're somebody sitting in a room right now feeling like you're worthless because somebody told you that, enough times that you started to believe it, listen to me, lean in close. I am living proof that one person's cruelty does not get to be the final word on your value. You hear me? You were never bought. You were found, and you are allowed to choose saint instead of ghost. Drop your story in the comments. Tell me what part hit you. Argue with me if you want. I can take it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story, because I'm not done talking yet, not by a long shot. And if nobody told you today that you're worth something, I'm telling you now, you are. You are safe here.